provisions. He stood looking at the beaten body of this almost woman. In life, she was a tall child, strapping like her father. But in death, she seemed so small. Perhaps it was because of her broken bones, and the way her skin sank in the places between the breaks that made her look so tiny and uneven. He shook his head in pity and looked up into the heavens for an answer. An arrow of blackbirds blinded the sun and then moved on. If that was clarification of why and what lay ahead, Black John never said. But he would think back on this day again in 15 years' time. His wife had helped birth this child, as she had most of the Bigelow children. She would take it hard, like she'd lost one of her own. He looked back at the child again, and a heavy sigh escaped him. "No rest for the weary," he muttered, and then couldn't think of why that would come to mind at all. He was procrastinating, standing there behind his wagon of potatoes, turnips, cabbage, yam, and Jude. He was stretching the space between his arrival and the scene that would follow. Crying eyes and screaming mouths. He'd seen plenty of grief in his life, but grief let loose from a woman who lost a child? That was the worst type of grief of all. If you could, you'd try to avoid that sort, because grief that comes from loss of a child just took a piece of you away each time you met up with it. And if you found yourself among it too often for too long, you'd certainly die way before your time. No, Black John was in no hurry to go. The sun sat watching curiously on its perch, delaying its descent into late afternoon. It was long past 3, and Black John's shadow stood stout before him, watching and waiting. He removed his straw hat, the one that belonged to his daddy before him, the one that he inherited when his uncle handed it to him with a quiet word. Black John could never remember the exact word that was spoken, but it left an emptiness in him. The strawberry-colored stain stiffening the center part of the hat's hump confused him more than scared him, because his daddy hated strawberries. Black John fingered the stain and looked back at the dead child, her dress blotched with her own strawberry stains. "Well," he muttered in resignation, as he pulled his handkerchief from his pocket and wiped the sweat from his brow and the back of his neck. He moved to the cab of the truck and removed a second empty crocus sack from the floor. Returning to Jude, he looked her over once again and shook his head in pity, and then tucked the crocus sacks around her body and went to the left of the wagon. That's when he saw it, glistening in the sun. His shadow stepped forward and shaded the glare. Black John knew immediately what it was, although he had never seen one without a woman's support, protection, and guidance behind it. Something like that, once seen, always known. He leaned down, and with the sweat-soiled handkerchief, retrieved Jude's womanhood. He would later recount, and he often did, how it quivered in the palm of his hand. His mule closed the distance in a slow saunter that barely disturbed the road dust. Black John looked over, and his shadow looked back at him. Ahead, he could see the small pond of black faces, eyes big with wanting to know, eyes big with wanting to see. Black John rode right into the middle, and when he stepped down from his wagon, he was 6 years old again. His father's straw hat, with the strawberry stain stiff and dry on its hump, in his hands. He pushed through the worn and patched sea of skirts, fought through the tree-long legs of men, and bit down hard on a hand that tried to cover.